Hi everyone. So, for my first film review for this channel, I wanted to pick this movie specifically as a sort of reflection on my trip to Chicago last week. So, last week was my birthday, and I wanted to treat myself by going down there. And I didn't get a chance to visit this particular place. I'm going to be doing that next month. But um, the movie that came to mind regarding this particular landmark for me was a movie that I had discovered back in college. So, roughly around 2006, maybe 2007. And the name of the movie that I'm going to be reviewing is Wicker Park. So this film came out in 2004. It's got Josh Hartnett, Rose Byrne, Diane Krieger, Matthew Lilliard. Yeah, that Matthew Lilliard of Scooby Doo. He played Shaggy. Um, and I was fascinated after watching this movie again tonight. This is probably, oh gosh, I want to say I've seen this movie at least a dozen times. And it never fails to still intrigue me as much as it can also annoy me personally. Because of the particular premise of this film and the running length time, it's just a little under 2 hours. It's a romance drama that starts out focusing on the life of this character named Matthew, played by Josh Hartnett, who is working in an advertising firm. He's about to go to a meeting at this Bellucci's restaurant. And at some point, he he goes he goes into the phone booth because he has to make a call. And as he's doing that, he picks up some faint, ghostly voice of someone that he claims that he knows, which, in fact, as we find out, is his old girlfriend, Lisa, played by Diane Krieger. And when he comes out, he thinks that he also sees her leaving the restaurant. One of the heels of her shoes breaks and she stumbles a bit, and she still manages to get out and leave, but of course she has to walk on one working shoe and one flat soled shoe. And this becomes the impetus for his obsession now to figure out if this in fact is the girl that had mysteriously disappeared from his life 2 years prior. Now, Diane Krieger's character, Lisa, is a contemporary dancer, which, of course, fascinates me. I, have a real guilty pleasure for movies about dancers or actresses that are also dancers in real life. Alicia Vikander is a great example. Um, and I'm pretty sure that Diane Krieger is also a dancer in real life, too. And so we go through a series of flashbacks that ultimately add up to creating a very non-linear structure of sorts. That's what this film, really starts to turn into. And So then, once the story gets going, we start to, see Matthew going to her hotel. By the way, the setup here is that he's supposed to go to China for a business trip, and he cancels at the last second. He's also planning to get married to a new woman. I think Rebecca is her name. So technically, he's getting a new start in life with a new woman, new career, and everything. So this past life of his is something that he thought that he left behind. But clearly, there's this ghost from his past that comes to haunt him again. And, I use the term ghost very metaphorically here because I think about what David Icke was talking about when describing what ghosts are, that they just happen to be informational fields that exist on a different vibration from our ethereal bodies, and that once we tune into the frequency of that ghost actually becomes solid. So that's what I was thinking of when I started seeing Matthew lie to his fiance and decide to follow this ghost that was his previous girlfriend Lisa, and that's where he ends up going to this hotel. He discovers her perfume compact, and from there it's him trying to chase down all the clues so as to figure out, did she really leave? Because last we heard early on in the story is that she just left, vanished, went to England to take over the role for this one dancer who broke her foot for a cabaret. Yeah? So this was a really, really big gig that she just had to snatch and take the opportunity to go to London for. But in doing so, she left Matthew in the dust. And Matthew just has been devastated for 2 years, wondering, if she even loved him. And no, that's the thing that I have, based my own philosophy of life around, is the fact that, love can be this very chaotic force that exists outside the stoic silo of the self. And you think you know somebody at first. You think, when you get up, when you see somebody at a distance and you develop a certain infatuation for that person, that they seem like this beautiful golden statue that you just have to treasure. But then you get up close to that person, and once you see their flaws, you freak out. Um, and this problem is doubled by the fact that there is also another character in this story, and that's the character of Alex, played by Rose Byrne, who um, it's kind of a bit vague as to how she enters into the. Oh wait, yeah. I know how she enters into the picture, but that's something I'll get to a little bit later. But when she's introduced into the story, it's it starts out, as like in the same way as Matthew pursuing, Lisa. this other girl kind of emerges as a sort of a ghost too. Like early on, when you see Rebecca, Matthew's fiance, entering into the restaurant, you see this other woman, struggling to get out the door, and she bumps right into Rebecca. Then later on, she shows up again at the video store, the camera store where Matthew is working, and you just catch a flashing glimpse of her face, just a glimmer of her identity. But then when she does show up later on, we're supposed to think that this girl is Lisa. We're supposed to think that um, that letter that Matthew drops off at what's supposed to be Lisa's apartment is really this other Lisa. But Rose Byrne's Lisa is really just, her stealing Diane Krieger's Lisa from her and using that as her identity, where now she kind of plays this female Machiavellian character who is trying to manipulate Matthew and um, um, Matthew and Lisa from behind the scenes. And then there's also Matthew Lilliard's character who plays the best friend of Josh Hartnett, and he's dating Alex, and he kind of becomes this guy that gets tangled up in this three-way romantic chaos scandal that's going on between the three. It's actually a very intriguing mystery thriller. It built within a romantic drama, and I think just this layering, this enclosing of one genre around another genre is very, very clever. That being said, though, its greatest strength is also its greatest weakness at at about 2/3 of the way through. The third act of the movie is where things start to get a little bit too drawn out. And I seriously feel like this film could have been trimmed down to at least 90 minutes. It didn't need to stretch out at 115 minutes here. But, at the same time, I like how everything wraps up at the end. Because the thing is that Lisa and Matthew do eventually find each other again, but boy, it's like there's as the viewer, you have to go through one poorly timed reunion after another, where it's like both Josh Hartnett and Diane Krieger are they just always happen to be like a few minutes off from each other before they can even see each other again. The scene where Matthew is trying to retrieve that key that he threw into the vent originally, outside of the airport, and then Lisa coming outside just right behind him, helping this old woman out to find some landmark around there. It's it does get a bit aggravating, and then on top of that, there's there's Alex, who constantly tries everything that she can to throw the other three characters off. Um, you know, there's one scene where Lisa, calls up Matthew Lilliard's character and tells him that, she had left her compact at the hotel and she wants to, um, she thinks that Matthew had come to try to return it to her, and so she tells him to like pass the message on to Matthew. And during this scene, Matthew Lilliard is with with Alex, and this was after they had sex together the night before, and once Alex starts to figure out that Lisa had just called Matthew Lilliard, she panics right away and she ends up like running out of the apartment, um, with very little notice, and telling Matthew Lilliard, I gotta go to work, sorry, I'll see you later. So she's like just this really, really shifty on and off type of person who you think you can trust her, you think can like her, but she's just a real scheming, I'm going to be blunt about this, just a scheming little bitch. So then, she calls up Matthew, Josh Hartnett's Matthew, by the way, and, tells him that, I can't remember what it was, but something to try to throw Josh Hartnett off so as to try to delay Lisa's message from getting to him. So yeah, it's this is definitely a very, very intriguing movie, to say the least. When I first happened upon the movie, I originally was attracted to it because of the soundtrack. It's got some of my favorite bands in there. It's got music from Coldplay. The Scientist is in there. I Know You Are, But What Am I by Mogwai is in there. And then there's two songs by Mum, one of my favorite Icelandic groups, that are used in that film. That was actually how I got interested in the film in the first place. It was in college. I was talking about Mum. I was talking about how I had just gotten into their music, and two of their songs from Finally We Are No One are used in that film. We Have a Map of the Piano, which is brilliantly used in the scene where you first get to see Diane Krieger at the studio during her contemporary dance class. And then I Can't Feel My Hand. Shoot. I've actually got the CD right here, too. Um, the song I Can't Feel My Hand Anymore, It's All Right, Sleep Still. Yeah, that song was brilliantly placed in the movie, too. And I thought, whoa, seriously? An underground group like Mum used in a movie with some really big A-grade profile stars? I mean, that's freaking brilliant. So I had to check this movie out on account of that. And the music itself is by Cliff Martinez, who's done music for Solaris, another movie that I really love. I'm talking about the George Clooney remake, not the original Tarkovsky film from '72. But yeah, Cliff Martinez, his very spacey ambient music, which is mostly synthesizer based, fits in really, really well with the rather ethereal atmosphere of Wicker Park. I mean, it really just makes Wicker Park itself seem very, very enchanting. And I'm all the more excited now to go back down to Chicago to actually see Wicker Park and, even check out some of the other landmarks around there, like the Drake Hotel, which is where Matthew goes to try to find Lisa when he's pursuing the first clue, which is that makeup compact. Um, yeah, I just I think this movie doesn't get enough attention. Um, and it's also based too off of a French movie, which I haven't seen yet. It's La Le Appartement. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. I'll put that down in the description below. And if anybody ever checks out that movie, let me know in the comment section. I'd be curious to know like how the original French movie holds up and how it compares to the 2004 movie Wicker Park. That would be great. Um, yeah, so I actually should go into a little bit more depth with Alex's character too, because it's an important part of the story. So Alex is an actress slash nurse. And the way that she's introduced into the story is um, there's a fight that breaks out between Lisa and Matthew. It's a bit of an odd scene too because Matthew's face is completely obscured during the part where Lisa climbs out the apartment window and just moves her way across the edge of the apartment wall on whatever floor they're on. And it just so happens that Alex had her window open that day, watering some plants or whatever. And so she tells Lisa, come inside, come inside. So some big, as a result of that big confrontation, um, that's how Lisa and Alex meet, with Lisa trying to escape Matthew. Um, the reason why, I don't know. That's definitely one plot hole that still kind of bothers me a bit because Matthew in that one scene yells at Lisa, tells her that she's a child, tells her that she tends to run away from things without dealing with them and confronting them directly. And when she does that, um, I mean, it's not never really explained why she does that. It's not really explained what it is, what was going on between her and Lisa that caused that fight in the first place. If that would have been fleshed out a bit more, I feel like that would have made a lot more sense. But I think, the whole focus of the film is to try to just keep the characters as vague as possible so that you try to figure out who they really are once you take off the masks that they wear. So Lisa and Alex then make a unlikely friendship together, and Lisa tries to do what she can to try to make her feel welcome in her home. And over time, um, I don't know who it was that encouraged Alex to pursue acting in the first place, but she starts filming Lisa, and apparently has a really really good skill for working with the camera. And before you know it, you see her now being cast in a Shakespeare play. And that particular scene was really fascinating to me because it happens at the midpoint or a little bit after the midpoint, after Matthew stumbles upon Alex in the apartment, but Alex is lying and says that she's Lisa, but that she's the wrong Lisa. And later on, you hear about her dating Matthew Lilliard, her best bud I mean his best buddy, and he himself, Matthew Lilliard, is also having a bit of a rough time with the relationship because she's very, very, very dodgy, very wishy washy. Like, she comes off as somebody who seems to love him at first, and then she quickly changes her behavior, her physiology, and her action altogether, and just like doesn't even talk to Matthew Lilliard for several days. Gives off the impression that she doesn't know if she really wants to commit. And as I learn more and more about her character, she just seems to be like this void, like somebody that's got low self esteem, who has to rely on what other people think of her, what sorts of impressions people project onto her as a way of gaining love and approval. I mean, she really is a very unstable, thin-skinned person, even as much as I dislike her. um, at the same time I pity her too, because she's just so disconnected with her true self that she has to get into other people's lives and manipulate them in such a way so that she can, you know, get what she wants. Like to get Matthew Lilliard to fall in love with her and to sleep with her, and to get Lisa to develop a friendship with her. But obviously, I'm digressing here because I wanted to get back to the scene where Matthew Lilliard. I gotta figure out who the name of Matthew Lilliard's character is. Um, it doesn't even say on the back of the box. When they both get together to see Alex perform at the play, Josh has no idea that the girl underneath the black swan style makeup is Alex. I is slash Lisa. See, you see what I mean? You see how the double fantasy kind of plays itself out here? Yeah, it's and then this, and then finally, towards the very end of the movie when the big reveal happens, um when when Josh Hartnett is supposed to now be serious and take off on his plane to China, he stays behind again, is invited to the Bellucci's restaurant by his buddy, where they finally meet Alex. And this, of course, is where now Josh Hartnett really starts to freeze, like stiffen up, and finally realize what Alex slash Lisa really is, what she's all about, how she's a narcissist and who has been, creating, concocting this incredible story all along. And that the real Lisa is, in fact, actually back home again. She, I believe what happened too was she ended up not going to London either. Though I'm I can't really remember why that was, but it's synchronicity right there. Like she didn't go to London, Josh Hartnett didn't go to China, and it's like this great magnet of synchronicity where it's like that these two characters were supposed to find each other again. And then eventually, yeah, it's like um, when Alex ends up giving this letter to Josh um, regarding Lisa's whereabouts and everything. He goes to Wicker Park, which is the place that they always went to when they went out on dates together. And once again, of course, they just miss each other by like a few minutes. But then finally, when he goes to the airport to see if she's there, if she's, taking off for London again, well, he has one more, run in with his fiancee, Rebecca, who he then has to confess to her that he doesn't love her after all, that he has somebody else that he used to love who has now come back into his life again. And that's the woman that, he wants to be with. That's the woman, that he really feels true, genuine love for. And then the last scene, of course, is, after Rebecca storms off in anger, realizing, how betrayed she felt by Matthew. It's at that point where, Lisa and Josh are now just within a couple feet of each other. Um, you know, uh, Lisa is kneeling on the floor of the airport terminal. Josh is right behind him, and tears are just welling out of his eyes. And just as Coldplay's The Scientist is playing, she turns around. She looks into his eyes. And it's like, it takes a few seconds for them to get, to get familiar with each other again before it's like the amnesia finally wears off. And now it's like these two ghosts that have been separate for so long have now incarnated into flesh, and the two just break down in front of each other. They hug each other. They kiss each other, and it's at that moment that you finally see that true love is finally blossoming at this very moment. And it's a very, very precious moment. It really is. So, yeah, that's all that I have to say about the film. It's, like I said, it definitely is a film worth watching. Um, I would just say that the the pacing of it starts to get a little bit nerve-wracking towards the last third of the film. But, you know, in the end, of course, I would still stick with it because I think that the way that the film ends, it ends very, very strongly. And it, for me, it definitely left, a lasting impression. I mean, even, uh, you know, almost 20 years on after I first discovered this movie, it's still it's still a very, very riveting film. So so yeah, that's my review. Um, Thanks, folks, for watching, and yeah, I'll see you next time watching the reel.